guys, I'm Carolyn and welcome back to my RV life and our next episode of Frequently Asked Questions. Today's Frequently Asked Questions is going to be all about how I find amazing free camps like this. Yep, I'm going to answer the frequently asked questions that I get the most about how I find amazing boondocking spots like this for free. Remote, beautiful. I get a lot of solitude. It's quiet. So the 5 boondocking questions that I get asked the most that I'm going to answer today are: number 1, how do I find great boondocking spots like the one you see here? Number 2, what do I do if I break down in a remote area when I'm out here by myself? And number 3, do I ever get scared? And number 4, how long can I boondock? How do I deal with food and water and things like that? And number 5, what tips do I have for newbies who might just be starting out for finding great free camping spots in your RV? Want to get started? Number 1, how do I find amazing, free, beautiful, remote boondocking spots like this? And the simple answer is I explore. I've done a video, several videos probably, about some of the tools that I use to find free boondocking, and I'm gonna put a link to that video up here. But just an overview, I use FreeCampsites.net, and it's especially important to read the reviews. The reviews are really helpful for knowing what size rig, how crowded it is, how dirty it is. The reviews are really good for FreeCampsites.net. I also use another app called US Public Lands. I don't use it very often, but if I'm ever in doubt about a place that I have found to camp and I don't know if it's public land, I will use the US Public Lands app on my phone. I think you have to pay for it, $2.99, maybe $4.99. I'm not sure if it's one time or a year. I don't really use that very often because, frankly, either most of the time I know because there are signs, or sometimes like this, it might be a gray area. I'm not sure. And if I see signs of camping like I do here, okay, so this place here, I'm in Alaska. Beautiful Alaska. I was on my way to Seward, Alaska, and I saw a road, just a road through a tiny little town, like a million of them, and I saw signs for 2 lakes, and I think they were on little brown signs. No camping signs, no campground signs, just 2 lakes, and I was like, that looks interesting. So I actually had to go down the road a couple miles before I could turn around and come back. I came 13 miles down a gravel road, 13 miles, very remote. There's a couple trailheads out here. I saw a couple cars parked at the trailheads, but that was it. There was a big sign warning people about coming out here because of snowfall and getting stranded. So not a lot of people come out here. And there were a couple places I could have stopped along the way that were fine camping spots. There was one big gravel, almost looks like a day use area. It had a bathroom in it. I mean, this is like in the literally like out in the middle of nowhere. There is not a house for, I don't know, maybe 10 miles. I think the first 3 miles of the road might have had some houses on it. And I could have parked there, but I was like, no, I just want to see what's at the end of the road. And it was a pretty good gravel road. So I'm at the end of the gravel road, and there is a utility district here. There is a dam and some utility private property up there. So this is a really good example of something you may not find on the Public Lands app. It's a utility district. This is what happens. A lot of times state and federal government might lease land to a utility company. And in this case, it's probably just the road. The road to get to the utility is very well maintained because of the electrical company stuff out here. And so the road was very good. And all of this land is just open land. If I pulled up the app, it might be state land, it might be county land. There is a lake here, and there's some fishing research in progress, and I saw some restoration. So there's a very good chance it could be. I saw a ranger on my walk yesterday. He waved at me, so I'm perfectly fine being here, apparently. And that's usually, I mean, really just being curious and being an explorer and always being curious about what's around the next bend. That's pretty much, I think, the best boondocking spots I have ever found. I have found completely by accident. The benefit of living the life that I live is I'm not in a hurry. Sure, I thought I might want to go to Seward, and I thought, you know, yeah, I might get there tonight, but what this lifestyle lends me, what not making plans allows me to do is to explore a 13-mile gravel road and say, okay, you know, if nothing else, I can just spend the night out there. And in many cases, it's where I end up spending 2 weeks. And that's just the way it goes. I'm actually editing a video now about a spot that I stopped at for lunch. I was like, yeah, you know, I think this will just be a lunch spot. And I ended up staying there at least a night, maybe 2 nights. I don't remember. I ended up staying there overnight. It was like, oh, I'm just looking for a lunch spot. But it was beautiful. And because I don't have anywhere to be, I was able to just relax and spend the night there. So, you know, I use the tools, the freecampsites.net, oftentimes just as a guide to let me know general areas that I can go in. And especially if I'm going into more populated areas, like I have been in Alaska, or like I am in the lower 48, if you're going near like Phoenix, if you're going near San Francisco, if you're going near more populated areas, freecampsites.net is really good to kind of let you know if there are even any possibilities in that area. And then I often just use that as a guide. I might use freecampsites.net to say, okay, yeah, there's camping there, but I very rarely stay exactly where freecampsites.net leads me. I usually stay somewhere else in that area. You know, that's all I can say. The longer you're out here, the more experienced you get in what looks like legal camping and what doesn't. In the beginning, I've said this before in other videos, I really pushed the boundaries too much in the beginning. I really didn't understand. So why don't we talk about that? You know, no trespassing signs means no trespassing. Don't trespass on private property. If something doesn't look or feel right, it probably isn't right, so I would move on. You know, there were a couple instances early on where it was just like, yeah, I'm kind of like just on the side of the road and it doesn't quite feel right. I'm a little nervous about it, and sure enough, I ended up having to leave. So that didn't feel right. Look for signs of camping. If you see signs of camping, if you see fire rings everywhere, then most likely camping has happened there. Whether it's legally permitted or not, you know, that might be another story. But most of the time, I have never ever been, well, except for stealth camping. But as far as like boondocking, I've never been kicked out. No, I've never been kicked out of public land boondocking, I've never had somebody say, you can't be there, you need to move. I've never even had somebody say, you know, why are you here? You shouldn't be here, but you could stay. So, I don't know, I guess I've had pretty good luck, or I'm just, you know, kind of aware of my surroundings. You know, you don't want to camp near houses. If you're in a residential area and you see a pull-off, I avoid even a pull-off that looks like it might be legal if there's a lot of local traffic going through. Nobody wants RVers hanging out in their neighborhood. I wouldn't if I was a homeowner. So I really do just try to respect other people's space when I'm boondocking. And a place like this is awesome because there's nobody out here. I've been out here, I think I got here yesterday. I've seen like 4 or 5 cars out here already, but there's no local traffic. So I'm not visible. I'm not bothering anybody. So that is another, I'm getting into tips. So number 5, I talked about newbie tips, and I guess I'm covering them now. You know, you just want to avoid residential areas. You definitely want to avoid private property signs. You don't want to go on somebody's farmland. You know, even if something is abandoned, like an abandoned house, an abandoned farm, except in Bledsoe National Forest, I think in Tennessee, but it was a state forest, I wouldn't do that. you know, and just someplace, just make sure you feel safe and make sure it just feels right. I guess that would be my best advice for that. I think my best advice for finding amazing free camp spots is just take the time to explore, be curious, explore. Don't let fear hold you back. Again, the video about me going down a road and ending up finding a homestead. You know, I try not to do that. I don't want to infringe on people's private property. So I never purposely go down a road that looks like private property. But in that case, I did. It wasn't marked. There wasn't a mailbox. There were no power lines, I think, looking at the video. There was nothing that told me that it was private property. And so I went ahead and explored. I was a little concerned that I was infringing on their space, but they were totally friendly and kind. And I guess, you know, on some level, you have to be a little fearless and you have to be willing to make mistakes, I guess. And you have to be, I think, if you want to find amazing spots like I do, I really think that you have to be a ask forgiveness rather than permission type person. I see a lot of permission type people in my audience and emailing me. I think you'd be a little bit more limited. I think that you probably you know, might be better off in campgrounds, RV parks, and really sticking to the rules if you're more comfortable following the rules all the time and being a, you know, I'm not going to do it unless I absolutely know, unless I have permission type of person. I'm not saying that you have to break the law to be a boondocker or you have to break a ton of rules to find amazing free camping spots. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not advocating breaking laws, but what I'm saying is that sometimes a road is going to take you into an unknown, like I'm at now. It's really an unknown. I don't have an internet signal. I don't have a cell signal, so I can't check, and I just took a chance. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you're risk averse, if you aren't willing to make a mistake, if you aren't willing to take a risk and maybe get kicked out or maybe even get a fine, then you might want to stick with some of the, you know, the more trusted, more reliable sources. You might want to make sure you know ahead of time. You make sure it might take some extra planning, and it might take some extra carrying the MVUM maps, the motor vehicle usage maps that the Forest Service gives you for national forests. And it might mean that you stop and talk to rangers at ranger stations in national forests to find out. But I really still believe that by doing that, you're going to end up where everybody else ends up. I don't think that you're necessarily going to find your own places. Like this, again, you know, I mean, I just can't believe there's nobody here. And like I said, I mean, I saw a ranger, so I'm allowed to be here. Sometimes you're going to, that's what I mean by gray area. You know, when we all do the same thing and go to the same places, you know, that's where everybody goes. But sometimes in gray areas, stuff that fall through the cracks of it's not governed by city, it's not governed by county, it's not governed by state or federal, and you know, there are things sometimes that just fall through the cracks. Sometimes it might even be private property that nobody really owns anymore, nobody really cares. I mean, you just never know, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you have to break the law or that you know, again, you have to ignore rules to find amazing boondocking spots. I'm just saying that you have to be open to the possibility that you might do that sometimes. Inadvertently. I mean, I'm not out here trying to break laws, but inadvertently, sometimes I might end up places I'm not supposed to end up. But like I said, in 2 years, that has not happened. The only times I've ever been kicked out, I knew I shouldn't have been there. You know, private property, warehouses. I was in a warehouse my first few months out, and first security told me I could be there, and then the second shift told me I couldn't be there. You know, I parked in a paintball parking lot. I didn't think anybody was there, and he came knocking on my door and told me I had to leave. And you know, so I pretty much, the only time I've ever been told to leave is I really was on private property. Sometimes I didn't know, sometimes I did know, and just thought I could get away with it pushing the envelope. So that's another thing. You know, I never ever 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 want to trespass on personal private property. I want to respect people's homes. I want to respect their farms, and sometimes though warehouses and things like that, I do push the envelope sometimes in more commercial situations. But yeah, no, you don't have to break the law. That's not what I'm saying. So please don't misunderstand me in saying that in order to be a boondocker, you have to break the law. That's not at all what I'm saying. I really honestly think that, I've said this before, I think that some of the best experiences in life happen in the gray area and happen when you push the envelope a little bit. I'm definitely a push the envelope kind of person, and this is my reward. All right, so that's my philosophy, I guess, and my advice on boondocking. And the second question that you ask me the most about boondocking is, what do I do if I break down? Well, the best thing I can tell you is, number one, just to make sure your rig is in good mechanical order as much as you can. Get regular maintenance, regular oil changes, regular fluid change. Make sure you check your tires, you know, and make sure your tires are inflated to where they're supposed to be, and just really make sure everything is in good working order. You know, if I've got a funny noise in my suspension, or I've got a slow leak in my tire, or a fast leak in my tire, or my engine is making a knocking sound, I'm not going to go on 13 miles of gravel road out in the middle of nowhere. So really being smart, just being proactive, and making sure that the best of your ability, making sure that nothing is going to break down while you're out here. The second thing you can do is, a lot of people, well, you always have your cell phone. Get a good roadside assistance program for RVs. I have Good Sam, and Good Sam, I think, tows unlimited miles to the nearest service station. So make sure you have a good roadside assistance policy. The other thing you want to do is, you know, you have your cell phone. If you ever need to call for help, you can call for help. If you are out of cell phone range a lot, or if you plan on it, or if you don't know, like I am, it's a good idea to carry a personal GPS device like Spot. I have a Spot. I don't use it ever anymore, really. I should. I actually need to renew my subscription, but having a Spot or an InReach, some kind of a satellite GPS device that you can either call SOS, or you can notify a friend, or something as a backup if you don't have a cell signal that you can use to get help, and that really can be helpful for a lot of people, for ease of mind, peace of mind, and just help you if you ever do get stranded 13 miles out. I actually went for a walk yesterday, and not even a mile up the road is a trailhead, and there were people up there. So it's really hard, unfortunately, at least in a Class C. If you're in a Jeep, or if you're in a four-wheel drive, it's a little easier to go like really, really remote. Honestly, in a Class C, in a 25-foot, 24-foot Class C, I'm never going to get so remote that I couldn't get help within a day. You know, at the most, probably within a couple hours. I would wish I could go that remote, but I can't. But if that is a concern, I highly recommend something like a Spot or an InReach. Yeah, the other backup, the other thing is, I have backpacking equipment on board. I think it's a good idea to always have some kind of a bivvy, we call it a bivvy, on board. Something that if you did have to hike out, you could. I know there are a lot of people with mobility issues who wouldn't be able to hike 12 miles. I could hike 12 miles in a day. At this point, it would really hurt. I used to be able to hike 12 miles in a day. It would really, really be painful, and I'd have to leave Capone behind. So that would be rough. But I mean, with my backpacking gear, I could even do it in 2 days, you know, stay overnight one night if I had to. So yeah, you know, that's always an option. I mean, I have a stove, I have a sleeping bag, I have a tent, I have my backpack, I have everything I need that I could hike out wherever I am, even if it took several days. So that's always a backup too, if I ever needed it. But again, I dream of going so remote that getting stranded and not seeing anybody would be an issue. But unfortunately, that's just not the case in most of the places that I go. Even here in Alaska, that's not the case. Number 4, how long can I boondock? And I just covered this a little bit in the All About My RV FAQ video. I can boondock 2 weeks. I haven't done it for 2 weeks yet in my current RV, and mostly that's just because I get antsy and want to move after a week to 10 days. But I have gone probably 2 weeks just without dumping my tanks, even if I'm moving around from site to site, not necessarily staying in one spot. But I can go 2 weeks if I ration my water. I have a 40-gallon water tank, no showers. That means a sponge bath, which you know, is perfectly, you can get clean without a shower. I know that comes as a shock to a lot of people. I don't even think showers have been around 100 years, right? I mean, people bathed. That's how they stayed clean. Look, you know, look at this. This is how a lot of people stayed clean for millennia. So I literally just a little bit of water, a little bit of soap, sometimes a little bit of vinegar. I like my clove, my essential oils. I use clove, I use lavender, I use eucalyptus. So I use a lot of different oils as well, you know, just to kind of fight bacteria and, you know, reduce odors and things like that. Yeah, so as long as you conserve water, for one person, I use 40 gallons in 10 to 14 days. So with two people, that might be a little bit harder. You'd have to really, really ration. But I have the dog too. Capone drinks, I don't know, maybe a half gallon of water a day. But when I'm someplace like this, I can get his water out of the lake. So my propane lasts 3 weeks. I don't think my propane has ever lasted less than 3 weeks, even when I'm using the time. And my tanks, I can go 2 weeks without dumping my tank again, as long as I don't shower. Or my gray tank would have to be emptied a little bit sooner if I take a shower. 10-15 gallons of water probably go into a shower. So how long can I boondock? Probably 2 weeks, but most of the time it's no longer than 7 to 10 days in one spot, and then I'm ready to move. Food. A lot of you ask me how I store food, especially being mostly vegan. How do I store my vegetables? I think I might do a whole video on that, but basically I stock up right before I go, and you know, I buy a big thing of lettuce or a big thing of spinach. And, you know, one of the big organic tubs, $5 or $7 up here, tubs of spinach. And I'll take it out and roll it in paper towels and put it in a gallon Ziploc bag, really tight. That'll keep for a week and a half. And, you know, if I do get to the bottom and it starts to get a little slimy, I'll cook it rather than eat it raw. Kale will last at least a week, maybe a little bit longer. I don't put it in Ziplocs. I usually just put it in the bottom bin. I don't do frozen veggies because they taste mushy and watery to me. I don't like frozen veggies. I have bought them just to have on hand in case I run out. Broccoli will last a little while. And again, if it starts to get, you know, most of the stuff I buy, oh my God, that scared me. It's a chipmunk. Most of the stuff I buy will last about a week. And if it starts to get a little wilted, I'll just go ahead and cook it up, and then I can extend it a couple of days. Carrots, of course, will last forever. Potatoes will last forever. Those aren't really vegetables. Let me see. But my staples are kale, spinach, broccoli, because I try to get rich green veggies as much as possible. I like cauliflower, so I will buy cauliflower. That'll last probably a couple weeks. So a lot of times, if I do have cauliflower, that'll kind of be like the last vegetable type food that I'll eat, because that'll last a while, and I'll usually roast it. Brussels sprouts will last a while. And yeah, and I mean, since I don't eat meat, I don't eat cheese, I don't eat milk or anything like that, I don't have to worry about any of that going bad. My tofu lasts probably 3 weeks to a month, maybe longer. So I stock up on tofu and I never have a problem. So that's how I deal with food. And usually that's when the food is when it's time to go, because I really do rely a lot on my fresh veggies. And so if I'm getting down to just a few carrots and a potato, then you know what, it's time to go get some spinach. And so that's how I handle food when I'm boondocking for extended periods of time. Number 4, do I get scared? And I've covered fear a lot in many, many videos. And again, I'll find 1 or 2 and I'll put a link up here for you so that you can check out I actually even did a how to overcome fear of being alone in the woods. And yeah, I think you should go ahead and check that out. But I just have to tell you that I learned a long time ago that if I wanted to live my life, I had to just get out and start living it, because I couldn't sit around and wait for somebody else to do things with. And so I started traveling alone. My first big trip was 3.5 weeks in Europe alone, and then I went to Greece alone for almost 3 weeks. And of course, I hiked the John Muir Trail for 26 days alone in the wilderness. I think that was probably really what helped me not be afraid out here. And a lot of it is just experience. I did the safety video about all the things that women and men need to do to stay safe on the road. And honestly, I don't even follow a lot of those things anymore. I have learned in almost, how long have I been on the road? 2.5 years, no, a little over 2 years I've been on the road, I've learned that there's really not much out here to be afraid of. Sure, there are things to be cautious of. And I'm going to be honest, the scariest situation I've had was the guy who approached me when I was on the Highway of Tears eating lunch and came up and was just acting really weird. I really think that was probably the scariest. And I wasn't making videos then. The night that a bunch of trucks intimidated me out of Marietta, California. There's a blog about that. I'll put a link. I think there's a blog. Oh no, I talked about it in the safety video. Those are the two scariest situations I have had. And in both instances, like I always say, I followed my gut and I was able to leave with no harm done. I do videos. I've done, I don't know, a handful of videos about scary situations. And my main purpose, my main mission for maybe dramatizing some of those videos a little bit is to drive home the point of how fearful our society has become and how much media, news, government, our fellow citizens want us to live in fear. And so when I do a video about, oh my God, a scary truck drove up to my rig in the middle of the night, I talked in that video about how ridiculous that fear was. That they were harmless, they were there doing their thing, it had nothing to do with me. But movies tell us to be afraid. Movies tell us to be afraid of going into the woods alone, Blair Witch Project, all the Freddy movies, you're going to get chopped up. Movies and society and books and media, especially for women, they tell us that if we dare veer off the straight and narrow, if we dare to live our lives our way, if we dare to explore like men explore, if we dare to hit the road like Jack Kerouac and tons of other men and John Muir who hiked in the wilderness, and if we dare to do that, bad things are going to happen to us. Little Red Riding Hood, right? Goes back to Little Red Riding Hood, who, you know, dared to go venture off into the woods by herself, and wasn't she eaten by a wolf? I mean, I don't know, that could be wrong. But that is basically what women are told. That if we dare leave the kitchen, leave the house, leave the kids, leave the grandkids, and we dare to venture out into the woods on our own, bad things are going to happen. And the reason I dramatize the videos is, yeah, to get views, because I want you to see that this perceived fear is not founded. That 99.9% of the time, when we're faced with a scary situation, that fear is something that has been indoctrinated in us. It's not real. And that's why I make these videos, because I want you to see, okay, here's this scary truck. Nothing happened. Here's this scary what else? What else was there? The rowdy kids. Oh my God, here are these rowdy kids. They're partying, they're drinking beer, they're spinning donuts, and oh my God, you know, movies have told us that the next thing they're going to do is come over here and rape and pillage. They didn't. They left. They left a mess, but they left. So society and media and movies have indoctrinated us to be afraid of each other, to be afraid of going out, to be afraid of living our lives the way we want to live them. And I make videos to say, no, you don't have to be afraid. The fact is, everybody else is out here just doing their thing and they don't really care about you. Sure, scary guy in Canada, I think that was potentially a real threat. But of all the things that I have experienced in my 2 years on the road, out of all the people that I've encountered, all the states that I've been to, all the, you know, and all through Canada, and all the miles that I've driven, one really scary guy who, you know, in the scheme of things, you know, he was lurking and gave me at least an opportunity to escape. I'm still, I think, not quite sure how to feel or how to put that into the realm of living in fear, because I don't want, and I think that's the reason I didn't really understand how scary that situation was at first, because I don't ever want to get to a place where fear paralyzes me. I didn't want to be paralyzed by fear. I don't ever want to stop doing the things I love to do because I'm afraid. To me, that would be a slow death. And I think that was part of the reason that when that thing first happened with that guy, I dismissed it so much in the beginning, because I was going on the scariest, most remote part of the Cassiar Highway. That was the jumping off point into the remotest part of the Cassiar Highway. If I had let that guy scare me so much that I was afraid, I may not have been able to experience that. I may have said, oh my God, no, this is too much. I'm going to turn around and go home. And I think that's my coping mechanism. I think, you know, rather than be paralyzed by fear, I just charge forward. Yeah, that's pretty much me. Now that I think about it, that's exactly how I've lived my life. I'm not going to let fear stop me. I'm going to charge forward, for better or for worse. I'm 50 years old. I'm still here and I'm still thriving. You know, we all get afraid. I think the question is, are you going to let fear stop you from doing the things you love? Are you going to let fear stop you from being the person you are truly meant to be? Are you going to let other people's fear dictate your life and your choices? Fear is healthy. There is definitely a healthy fear, but when your fear takes over your life to the point where you can't do the things you love, I think then it becomes a handicap. And it's not healthy anymore. Advice for newbies, go out and do it. That's my biggest advice. I think I've told this story before. I loved backpacking in my 20s. I didn't have anybody to backpack with, so I was pretty much going with Sierra Club, people that I didn't know, groups of people, wonderful, loved them. It was awesome. But I was so afraid of the woods at night that I was afraid to go by myself. And I really wanted to start doing some backpacking alone. So I went on a one-night backpacking trip by myself. I was like, this scares the crap out of me. I don't want it to scare the crap out of me. I don't want it to prevent me from doing something I really love to do and I really want to do. And so I went out and spent a night backpacking alone. And, you know, fast forward 20 years, I ended up spending 26 nights alone on the trail. And never had any bad experiences ever on the trail. And so that's my advice. If you're afraid, just take baby steps, just one tiny baby step. Maybe you start with lunch, drive 13 miles out a remote road and just unpack your car, sit in your chair and have lunch. Start small. Stay, even if you're uncomfortable. No, okay, well, hold up. Yeah, even if you're uncomfortable and feeling a little afraid, if it's unfounded, stay. I mean, if you're feeling like, you know, you're going to be attacked for some reason, you know, I don't know. Actually, that's a tough one because I say listen to your gut, but also you need to face your fear. So that's a tough one. I think maybe the advice is to recognize the difference between an unfounded fear and your gut. And I guess that's a tricky one. I think that comes with practice. And I think it comes with experience. But if I were just sitting out here and I don't know, what's the difference between a creepy feeling and feeling like your gut is telling you to go and just sitting in your fear until you're not afraid anymore? I think only you can answer that. I think everybody's gut feeling is going to be different. And I think I don't know though. I think people who are really in tune with themselves and really in tune with their processes and really in tune with their feelings and emotions would probably be able to discern fear from a gut feeling saying, get the heck out, danger. I guess that would be it. The difference between fear and danger. I think your gut would tell you danger, go, and fear is just sitting here feeling maybe uncomfortable, looking around, but I would say sit in that fear. Until, I mean, that first night of backpacking, it scared the hell out of me. I was laying in my tent out in the middle of nowhere. I'd lost the trail. I thought I heard chainsaws off in the woods. I mean, I didn't sleep at all. I was freaking scared. But I didn't leave. And from then on, I did many, many more solo backpacking trips that actually led up to the John Muir Trail. So start small, go for a lunch, sit in that fear. Recognize that it's just fear and that as long as there's no imminent danger, just sit in it and then graduate to an overnighter. One of my viewer and a fan club moderator, Linda, wrote to me a few months back and said, oh my gosh, Carolyn, thanks to you and your inspiration, I went out and I spent, I don't know what it was, 3 or 4 days alone in a remote boondocking spot, and I loved it. She said, I never would have dreamed of being able to do that before, but watching you gave me the courage to get out and do it myself, and I absolutely loved it, and I can't wait to do more. And that's very common of the emails and the comments that I get from women. It really just takes baby steps. Start small. Don't go out having never spent a night alone in the woods and go out and say, okay, I'm going to do a week. Don't do that. That's too much. You'll overwhelm yourself. So start small. Start with a lunch, then do an overnight, and then maybe do 2 overnights. And before you know it, you'll be a pro, and you'll be able to do it all the time without even thinking about it. All right, I hope this has been helpful. There was a lot of information in here and a lot to think about, and I want to hear from the women. I don't know. I have heard from a few men too who said they would be scared to death. Actually, one of the biggest compliments I get from men is, I'm a dude, and some of the stuff you do scares the hell out of me. I don't know, there's a thin line maybe between bravery and crazery. My ex-husband used to say, yeah, but you're the good crazy. You're the fun crazy. And maybe there's some truth in that. I just think that when, and I've heard from other people, when life has thrown you giant wads of shit all your life, there's not much to be afraid of at some point. At some point it's just like, I hate to say that, but at some point it's just, I've been through it all. I've been through so much that, not much scares me anymore. And I don't know, I've always been a little fearless. Anyway, I hope that helps, and I hope it gives you some stuff to think about. And leave your, let's all help one another. Let's leave your comments about your experience. Have you ever camped alone? Have you ever boondocked alone? What are your fears about it? What advice do you have for other people who might be afraid of doing it? How did you overcome your fears of being alone in the woods or boondocking or traveling alone? So why don't we all just help one another? I'm reading a great book right now, and they call talk circles, I think talking circles. So let's create a talking circle, and let's hear one another and support one another, and see if we can empower each other to be less fearful and more courageous about living our lives our way, and not listening to the hype of the media, who just the media, society, and all the powers that just want to really kind of keep us home, keep us tied to our jobs and our mortgage and our car and all those things that really don't make us happy. All right, thank you all so much for listening. I hope this has been helpful. I'm enjoying this FAQ series. I hope you are too. Let me know. Are you liking this? Is this helpful, or is it redundant? I know that a lot of this material I've covered before, but I have a lot of new viewers who haven't seen some of the older videos, and I think it's also not a bad thing to do kind of an update. I haven't done a lot of these videos in over a year, maybe longer. I've got another year under my belt on the road now, and so I might have some new insight for you. I don't know, maybe not. Okay. Thank you all so much for hanging with me. Thank you for all you do to support my channel, to support my work, to support me personally with your moral support, your kind words, your encouragement. It just means the world to me to know that I have such wonderful people in my friendly audience. So thank you all. I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, be happy. Capone's chasing a chipmunk. Okay, I'm going to show you in a minute. Be happy, be free, and be kind. Mwah. Hi, bud. You just been sitting there waiting for me, huh? You just been such a good boy. I think it might be time for lunch.